Hello, nerds! Nerds for Yang. I have to be a little quiet today.
Hello, nerds!
Because I'm filming at night and the kids are sleeping in 2 rooms adjacent to us. But this week I have a very special analysis that covers the media bias against Andrew Yang, but not generally. I know we've showed charts about that before, like general cable coverage. This time what we did was we isolated the Beltway media, the sort of party elites media, the establishment Washington DC media, which is basically Meet the Press, Face the Nation, and This Week. And the reason why this is important, you might be like, well, I don't watch that. Who watches that? The big donor class watches it. The DNC leadership watches it. So what are the results? First, I want to thank Charlie N., who is a Nerds for Yang viewer. He tried to help us get to the bottom of this hypothesis, which is that the Beltway media is giving other Democratic candidates disproportionate coverage compared to Yang. And so what Charlie did was he looked at 45 previous shows, the last 15 weeks for Face the Nation, Meet the Press, and This Week, and looked at which candidates appeared on those shows. And then I added the polling support for each of those candidates, and then we compared the number of appearances over this 15-week period to the polling support. And we said, well, you know, if Yang has been on one of these shows out of the 45, but he has 1% polling support, if another candidate has, say, 2% polling support, then maybe they should have 2 appearances, like double what Yang has. And if they have 0% polling support, you would imagine they would have less, maybe at most equal. Let's see what we found. The results are that Yang and Gabbard are totally getting the shaft. They are getting excluded from appearances on these very important, highly influential shows. They're influential for getting money, will be influential for superdelegates if there's a contested nomination, and they're influential for other media that then decide who to cover. So it's kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy. Klobuchar and Castro, on the other hand, are the opposite. They are basically being subsidized by these shows because they are getting free coverage, free appearances that give them access to a big donor audience, get them access to other media journalists that watch these shows that then decide to cover them subsequently. They're getting disproportionate coverage on these Beltway shows compared to what the polling support indicates. We'll go into the data in a second. So the last one is that Meet the Press is a total Beltway senators club. So if you are a senator and you're running for president, you will get on Meet the Press, no problem. Even if you're not polling very well, they will get you on. It's like the TSA pre-check. They go right through, whereas Yang and Gabbard, they're like on economy, light, standby, can be bumped at any moment, have to get through extra security checks. It's just the complete opposite. So is this a biased assessment? Is this just like some Andrew Yang fanboy? No. We have data. No. We have data. So here's the data. I'll walk you through this because I know you're like, whoa, this is like kind of some kind of crazy Sudoku chart. What you have here is each column from left to right is indicative of one Sunday of coverage, and then the rows indicate which candidate we're talking about. So for any column, any date, we see, oh, which candidate got covered. And you'll know if they got covered in these crucial shows if their box is colored. So if we start all the way on the left-hand side, on May 19th, 2019, you see Sanders is red, so that means he was on Meet the Press. Gabbard was on This Week. Ooh, not bad, Tulsi. Gillibrand was on Face the Nation, and then Hickenlooper and Moulton were also on This Week. So I guess This Week had quite a little bit of a variety pack going. So the rows are ordered by the August 20th Economist YouGov polling results. So we've ordered it in terms of the most popular candidate based on polling at the top. So that's Biden, Sanders, Warren, Harris, Buttigieg, O'Rourke, Booker, Gabbard, Yang, in order. in descending order, and then we go left to right in time. And so what would you expect to see here? Well, you would expect that most of the top rows should have the highest concentration of colored boxes. You would think that the media will cover the leading candidates the most. And then you would also expect that as you move down this list, you'll see less and less colored boxes. A couple things jump out. First, you notice that Biden, either A, he's not getting invited to meet the press this week or face the nation, or most likely B, that his campaign has elected not for him to appear on these shows. I would imagine they're worried about him kind of, stepping in it and appearing not ready. And since he's in the lead, why take the chance? You'll see Sanders got a little more scrap in him. He's been on 5 appearances, and Warren is another one, like Biden, that has been avoiding these shows like the plague. Again, she's been on 0. Now, it could be, again, she's not being invited. Most likely, it's that her campaign does not want her under hard questioning. Then you have the rest, like Harris, Buttigieg, O'Rourke, Booker. Okay, so now let me explain a couple more columns. You've got the free coverage column, which is the number of appearances. That's just the number of boxes. Some of the boxes have a different colored border, meaning they were on multiple shows. And then polling support, which is the CNN YouGov August 20th polling. And then what I did was we have the bias factor. We basically divide the amount of free coverage by the polling support. So we imagine, if you have 8% polling support like Harris, then you should have been, but you've only been on 2 shows, it's 25%, which is 2 divided by 8. So actually Harris, if it's less than 100%, it kind of means you're undercovered. Yang is polling at 1% nationally and has been on 1 show. But now let's get into the bias, the real kind of hardcore bias. So the green shaded bias factors are the ones that I would focus on. So you see Beto O'Rourke has 3% polling, but he's been on 7 shows. Whereas Yang is polling at 1 and he's only been on 1 show. So if Beto was getting the same coverage as Yang, you would think, he should only be on 3 shows. Booker is polling at 2%, so twice as much as Yang, but he's been on 5 shows. So he's been on 5 times more than Yang, but only has twice as much polling support. In fact, for Booker, that guy has been on Meet the Press twice, and he's been on This Week twice, and Face the Nation, whereas Yang has only been on Face the Nation, and that was just a week ago at the time of this shoot. So without that Face the Nation appearance by Yang on August 18th, he'd have 0 shows, whereas Booker would have had 5. Where is the biggest media teachers' pets? I would have to say you cannot ignore 2 rows here. You gotta look at Castro and Klobuchar. I mean, there's a lot where the people are getting more coverage than the polling suggests. Basically, everybody except Sanders, Harris, Buttigieg, and Gabbard are getting more coverage than Yang is proportionate to his polling support. So out of 24 candidates, only 4 are getting less coverage than Yang, and I would argue Sanders, Harris, and Buttigieg probably are declining invitations. So maybe only 1, Gabbard, is getting more unfair treatment than Yang. Let's start with Castro. Polling at 1%, not trending in the right direction, whereas Yang is trending up, Castro is not. But he's been on 5 programs. So he was on This Week, Meet the Press, June 30. He was on Face the Nation, July 28th. And then he was on Meet the Press again, and This Week, on August 11th. And then Klobuchar, my God, Klobuchar is polling at 0% nationally, according to CNN YouGov. She has been on these shows 5 times. 5 times. She's been on Face the Nation 3 times. I guess she's on speed dial with the Face the Nation producer. Then she's been on Meet the Press, and then she was also on This Week on July 7th and July 14th respectively. There is one other thing I want to call out, which is look at the pattern of red boxes. You'll see, oh, at the top there's a bunch of red boxes. Well, that makes sense, you know, because Meet the Press is basically covering the top candidates that are polling the highest. But then you'll notice right after you get to the Booker row, there's no more red, skips the next row, which is Gabbard. The red skips the next row, which is Yang. And then it goes to Castro. Why? Then they skip Gillibrand, Bullock, de Blasio. Then they cover Klobuchar. They even cover Steyer, who's polling at 0. It seems to me like the Meet the Press producers, for whatever reason, according to polls, really should be covering Yang and Fairness, Gabbard, yet they skip those two and go right to Castro. And then they give Klobuchar and Steyer, who are both polling at 0 coverage. Now, if you look at This Week, which is that tan box, that's kind of actually a little bit more evenly spread. And so you could argue, oh, well, at least This Week is kind of giving other candidates a chance, like Bullock and de Blasio, Bennett. I would say This Week, though, has never covered Yang, yet they did decide to cover Moulton twice, Hickenlooper once, Bennett once, Steyer once, Klobuchar once, de Blasio once, Bullock once. It's like This Week is giving everybody but Yang a chance. And then in terms of Face the Nation seems a little bit more fair. Of course, they're the only one that ever covered Yang. Their blue boxes seem more evenly spread. I mean, if you wanted to give Face the Nation some grief, you would say, well, how come they've never covered Gabbard? Yet they have covered Bennett, Delaney, and Williamson, who are all under Gabbard in terms of polling support. They're all zeros right now. Klobuchar is also a 0, yet Face the Nation has covered her 3 times. In summary, Meet the Press and This Week really need to consider covering him. And the question for Meet the Press is like, what's going on? What's this deal with the love affair with Klobuchar, Steyer, Castro twice, and Yang 0? And then for This Week, I would ask them, hey, you covered Castro twice. You've done Bullock with de Blasio, Klobuchar, Steyer, Bennett, Hickenlooper, Moulton, 0 Yang. Like, what is going on? So if you're as disappointed as I am, you can take action. Please feel free to tweet this video to the producers of Meet the Press and This Week. Meet the Press is, surprise, surprise, NBC. And This Week is ABC. And Face the Nation, I suppose what we should do is probably, in fairness, tweet at Face the Nation and say, hey, thank you for including Yang. You guys were the only Sunday morning established politics show to cover Yang. We think that was great. Hope you guys do it again. And for Meet the Press and This Week, like, what's going on, guys? Let Andrew speak. This is the type of analysis that shows we're not just, you know, complaining all the time. We're just looking at the data. We're just saying, hey, you know, if our guy is polling in the top 10, then he should be getting commensurate coverage with the top 10. And you guys shouldn't be going out of your way to give number 14 multiple free interviews and skip Yang.
Now it's always like Peppa Pig or some bullshit.
So go out there, keep it real, and we will see you next week. Nerd Power. Hello, nerds. Nerds for Yang. I can't give you... Where's the fucking camera? There? Or is it there? There.
Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang. Yeah, yeah. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang. Yeah. I want 1,000 a month, 1,000 a month. I want 1,000 a month, 1,000 a month. Let's get this bread. Freedom dividend. Are all y'all paying attention? Automation gonna sweep the nation unless we get him in. Andrew Yang 2020 freedom dividend. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. 2020. Yang gang. Yeah, yeah. First we get this money, then on 420. He gonna give some high fives to some high guys. Decriminalize marijuana so we can smoke if we wanna. Down with the opioid trend, up with the mental health thing. Yeah, math. Yo, it's just math. Yo, it's simple math. Yo, can you do math? Yo. Eliminate super PACs, college stars making stacks, student loan forgiveness plan, cops wearing cameras and climate change is real again. Science rules. Teachers bringing home some bread, Medicare for every citizen. Andrew Yang 2020 freedom dividend. Yang gang 2020. Yang gang 2020. Yang gang 2020. Yang gang. Yeah, yeah. Yang gang 2020. Yang gang 2020. Yang gang 2020. Yang gang. Yeah, yeah. Yo, a vote for anyone else is like negative $1,000 from your pocket every month.